Coming up, let's talk new look lineups for the New Jersey Devils. Does practice tell us that Lindy Ruff is ready to move Holtz, to move Palat, to say thanks a lot, and reinvigorate this team that desperately needs to find its footing in the absence of Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier? We dive in coming up next. Yes, sir. It's DPL, the Devil's Puck Luck podcast, where we are your hosts. Over here, Adam Armbrecht. Over there, Danny McDonough. And it is maybe, Danny, a bright new shining day for the New Jersey Devils. As our last episode, we talked about some frustrations. What is this team going to look like without Jack and without Nico? Do changes need to be made? And we had some questions. You had specifically some questions around the usage of one young Alexander Holtz. And then we get a very positive November 13th practice session where things look dramatically different top to bottom, not only offensively, but defensively as well.
Yeah, it looks like Mercer centering Tofolli and Holtz. It's what we've been talking about, giving him a chance, being that top six guy, in his limited minutes, he's taking advantage of it. We know his, downfalls being, soft on the puck at times and not, being a good puck possession guy. But, it's maybe Lindy was listening to the fans, right? It's crazy to think about.
I've heard Lindy fan of the podcast.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah. Maybe he's watching right now. You never know. But no, listen, we all been thinking it, as fans, like what's going on with Holtz, what's he going to be for this team? And now we're going to find out, if the practice kind of tells us what's going into Winnipeg, tonight against, the Jets, and he's good on the top two lines, you're not going to take him off, for the time being while Nico and Jack are out. You can't.
Well, my thing is too, and you had said, listen, we can go all the way back to camp if we want to. You play him the whole time up on the second line, then all of a sudden you kick him down. It's just you're shuffling this young kid around that really needs the confidence, I think, behind him. And I think he's handled himself well in post game, interviews and just saying, trying to get better, trying to do the best I can with the ice time that I'm getting. But I also think like the concern around him on the stick, he doesn't need to be a great puck handler on the stick, especially when you put him on the line with Tofolli and with Mercer. Now you get to say like all of the best moments you've seen from Alexander Holtz early in this season has been, wow, does he have that quick little wrist shot, right? Wow, does he put himself in nice positions to get some of those doorstep goals, the easy ones that you expect everyone to put in the back of the net. He'll be able to thrive in that role there, I think, in that top two line. And obviously, hopefully it helps stem the tide there in the absence of Jack and Nico. The top line there with Meyer, obviously McLeod has been doing an excellent job getting elevated. I like when you take a guy from a bottom line and you just throw him right to the top and he goes ahead and continues to perform at a high level. Do you anticipate even, I'll say beyond well, let me ask you about the Brat, Meyer and McLeod. Sure. Is this, is your focus going to be a little bit here on Jesper? Because he had a very hot start. We talked about it. And then once Jack went down, once Nico went down, Jesper is trying to figure out, find his way a little bit again here over these last few games.
Yeah, and he knows it. He said everything correctly. He knows that he needs to step up in a big way and that he hasn't, since Jack and Nico have been out. So I like his attitude. I think he knows that he is one of these leaders on the team for this young core, and it's time for him to step up. And with McLeod, obviously winning the faceoffs, that's what you want to see. He's going to get those chances. He's going to be able to fly all around the ice. McLeod being the guy that's going to forecheck the hardest. And Lindy Ruff said it the best. He is the guy that he's noticed the most with Jack and Nico, stepping back with their injuries.
Yep. And so we think about those top two lines, obviously, trying to get that ball rolling. It's funny, man. First, kind of jump off game for Mercer in this last outing. Obviously, it didn't come in a winning effort, but you like to think that's going to inspire him. That line there is going to be fascinating, at least from the standpoint of Tyler Tofolli. He's the veteran. Hopefully, he kind of helps anchor them a little bit. But Mercer and Holtz, it is going to be a question mark. If they go with this line here, there's going to be, I think, a little bit of angst. While I like it, and I think it's the right move, we're still going to go into that game going, okay, like here we go. Let's see how those early shifts look for these guys, right?
There's a reason why I really like this line. It's because Mercer's been playing really well on the penalty kill. He's getting some good minutes on the penalty kill. He knows defensive hockey. He's a good centerman, man. I know we don't see him a lot, but he wins faceoffs and he's very strong in, on the dot with the faceoffs. He's been playing really well. If don't quote me on this, but I think he's in the high 50s, 58% or so, with his faceoffs. And Tofolli's a veteran. Tofolli's a veteran. He knows where he has to be. He's going to know that Holtz is a younger guy that might make some mistakes, and he's going to be conscious of it. It doesn't mean he's going to get away from his game, Tofolli, but it's good to have Holtz on that line, just like you said. He doesn't need to be this guy that has the best puck possession on the team, against the Jets. He
No.
needs to be a guy that's smart with the puck, yes, but to get those quick wrist shots off from broken plays, from passes from Mercer, from great plays that we've seen Tofolli to Jack Hughes when he was obviously in the lineup. Not saying that Holtz is Jack Hughes, but those nice assists that he was given to Jack, he can do the same thing for Holtz. And I think that Holtz has had great opportunities with his limited time, and I think he's going to continue to have it on the top two lines.
And that's why there's a little bit different dynamic here because Holtz is not Jack Hughes. I mean, for a lot of different reasons, but he's not going to be the guy with the puck on his stick and maybe setting others up. It's going to be a role reversal here, right? Jack is a guy that you want to have all the opportunities to score and to produce and to create unto himself and for others. This is going to be a little bit more about serving your role and hopefully capitalizing on that. We can look back here. You talk Palat and Holland Lazar and Nocek and Tierney and Bastion there on the bottom line, obviously. But then, man, coming up here in a second, we're going to turn our attention to the defensive pairings. We're finally, Danny, if they listen to you about Alexander Holtz the last few days, finally, Lindy Ruff understands what it is, what I see when I look into the eyes of Luke Hughes and I see him out there on the ice. We'll dive in on the defensive pairings and some big changes here and what it means for this team coming up in just one moment. But before we do that, going to tell you about our other friends over at DraftKings. That's because halfway through is the NFL season, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking up customers with a strong offer. You bet just $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets, and DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every single game day throughout this NFL season. When I dip my toe over into that delightful NFL water, Danny, this weekend, listen, man, I'm going to talk about the Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. What happened to Cincinnati this past weekend? You got Cincinnati getting 3.5 divisional game. They're in fourth place. They might have been the best team 2 weeks ago, and now they are in the cellar of their own division. Are you laying that points? 3.5 with Baltimore and Lamar Jackson?
Isn't it crazy that they were the hottest team in the league, the Bengals, and they got quieted by CJ Stroud? It's unbelievable, right? But
CJ Stroud's going for Rookie of the Year and also MVP.
That's
what he's going to do.
Yeah, this is a game that I think I'm going to take the points.
You better believe it, man. Okay, so you'll take the Bengals. I'll actually lay them because I think people are, once again, as often is the case, sleeping on who Lamar Jackson is and what he can mean for a football team, especially the Baltimore Ravens. Get in on the game day greatness, though, by downloading the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. As you use that promo code
THPN,
where new customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's promo code
THPN.
Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? You can call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.100gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please pay responsibly on behalf of Boot Hills Casino and Resort. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in our friends to the north, Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.com/DraftKings football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, along with responsible gambling resources. Okay, Dan. So the other thing then that, and this maybe to me is more exciting than finally putting Holtz up on the top line, because I think you kind of see this coming, right? We need offense. You got to go with the guys you have available right now. Holtz can be that player for you. Fantastic. Then defensively, though, open your eyes, guys. Close your ears and listen to the sultry sounds of my voice when I tell you Luke Hughes is now on the top defensive pairing, at least in practice, with Dougie Hamilton. You got Siegenthaler, Marino, and then Bahl put down there on that third pairing with Smith. You got Willman and Miller there going to sit behind them as the scratches ready to come in if needed. I love this, man. I love what they are doing with this, because what they're saying is, at least in my opinion, we want to get as offensively minded as we can on our top defensive pairing because we need as much offense as possible. And by the way, Luke Hughes has not lit the world on fire on the offensive end of the ice right now. So let's get him with Dougie. This guy's a free fire. Maybe the assists actually start to rise for Luke here on this pairing potentially. But then in behind it, our defense sucks. So let's try to manufacture the best versions of these. I like the middle line pairing, and then I really like putting Bahl with Smith. It might be, your words here, but we were getting set up, the best opportunity to have like a physical pairing for this defensive unit.
Yeah, and penalty killers too, right? Bahl and
That's right.
Smith have been playing really well on the penalty kill. Smith has been actually really, really good on the penalty kill. 5-on-5, not so much.
Yeah.
So, and Ball's been great on the penalty kill as well. But to your point, I think we knew a shakeup was coming. And if you see a shakeup with Holtz going on to the second line, it doesn't surprise you as much that Luke got shifted around on defense too. I know Lindy hasn't touched defense at all this
Mhm.
year, with the pairing. So I love it, man. I totally agree with you. I think there's going to be opportunities where there's an offensive, draw, and to have Luke and to have Dougie in the offensive zone to try and get some scoring power there. It's great. And to have Siegs, who's been struggling a little bit with Marino, who's been playing a lot better.
Yeah.
Overall, I love it. I think these are great pairings, and I'm really excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, and I know we talk about whether or not I have a critical eye towards Ball right now. It's just that I think, and again, we say this for a lot of the players, man. Like expectations are sky high for everybody that's 23 years or younger. Like everybody just needs to take this big step forward, and then everything will be fine. And frankly, you and I talked about this before the season started, right? As it is for almost every NHL team. Injuries are going to dramatically change how you look at the roster and how you set expectations. When you take Jack, leave Nico off to the side here, although I want to touch on a very good question that you posed over on Twitter. But when you take Jack out, it's you start to look around the roster and you start to notice the guys that haven't been as productive, right? Or haven't finished the shots as clinically as we may have hoped on the offensive end. And Ball, I think, is a guy that you do need to be that two-way player. So I'm not knocking him. I'm not saying that he's had a bad year, but I am saying that he might have been what? Third or fourth in line in terms of rising expectations from last season coming into this season.
Yeah, I mean, how strong of a playoff he had, right? You were expecting him to kind of do what McLeod did and step forward and
You know
continue to
what?
take that role.
That's a great example because McLeod, it's not like McLeod has come out blazing a trail, but the consistency that he's played with, right? Some of that, the specifics you want from his role, still great on the face-off, gets down on the boards, right? Does a nice job locking the puck up. Like you've just seen him incrementally move forward. I'd say Ball is playing to the same standard that we had from last year, and I'm just waiting for that next little step.
Yeah, it's not a bad look. We have to remember too, this is Ball's really his second year, right? Ball didn't
I know,
have,
yeah, it's hilarious.
it's McLeod has a little more NHL experience, obviously, and we have to give Ball a little bit of a longer leash. But yes, I think that he can play a lot better than he has. But I think he's played well.
Yeah.
He hasn't played lights out like, oh my god, Ball is unbelievable right now. He's played good. He's
Mhm.
played good as a defenseman. That is a second pairing and really a third pairing. He's your better of the third pairing, right? He's your fifth defenseman, let's call it. And he's
Yeah,
playing well. He's playing
that's fair.
fine. I think that he's going to elevate himself as the season goes on. He's doing what he needs to do with his body. He's being physical with his body. He's being strong on the puck. He's getting to the puck quicker behind the net on our defensive side, which I really like to see. And he's beating guys to the puck. And at the end of the day, having Smith with him is going to tell us a lot as well, right? Because Smith does make some mistakes 5-on-5.
Mhm.
So I want to see how Ball reacts to what Smith does on the ice as well.
Yeah, I think to that extent, it actually what makes it interesting to me is getting Luke away from Smith. Not, and we talk about it from both sides.
Mhm,
Well, he's familiar with Smith, so you don't want to shake things up for him. But
mhm,
you just mentioned it there, right? Sometimes Smith can be a little bit shaky. Again, we always put it in context. He's your sixth, and maybe he should be a seventh defenseman on most rosters, but he's your sixth defenseman. So you have to take it with the spirit that it's intended. But to your point, if we hope that Ball can more comfortably react to those moments with Smith, it should also come as a relief that Luke is not being expected to
yeah,
react to those things. Because I actually think, though, by the way, let's not split the atom here. Dougie Hamilton is not exactly going to be a model of consistency with Luke, but I think at a certain point, what Lindy Ruff might be acknowledging here, and especially with the injuries, you get to try some different things. Is hey, putting Luke in a spot where he's clearly, and I think he's done a pretty good job defensively,
mhm,
but he's clearly keeping a very consistent eye to not make the error there. Let's get him where we say, don't even worry about the defense for a game or two, right? Because especially right now, we kind of guess what? Your last name is Hughes. That means there's an expectation here that you can give us a spark for a few games if we need it on the offensive end of the ice.
Listen, we have to understand there's going to be mistakes with this pairing.
Yes.
Going to happen, but it is
But I
going
think but I think there'll be electric moments too, right? Like
yes.
that's what you're selling it for. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it's really important, right? To like I said in the beginning, in the top of the episode, when there's an offensive draw and you're switching and you have the last change, it's going to be incredible to see Luke and Dougie jump on with a tired, opposition. If there's an icing, getting them on, fresh legs on, a pairing on, watching them being able to dance around the blue line and make those scoring chances happen. It's going to happen. I'm telling you right now. What's the matter?
Coming up here in a second, I agree with you. Coming up here in a second, I'm going to highlight a statistic that'll be fun to watch when it comes to some of these defensive pairings. Also, get into the question that Danny posed over on Twitter to the Devil fan base, and I think a very positive response from that. We'll get into those key moments here as we wrap up today's episode, right after I tell you about our friends over at Raycon. Oh, baby, you know that holiday season is upon us. Maybe it's too early to be decorating. Gosh, I hope nobody has up their holiday decoration. I mean, please stop it. It's not even Thanksgiving yet, but it's never too early to start your holiday shopping. Why not take care of it now before the crowds and the packed calendars make shopping a total nightmare, especially when you can get some of the best deals on the season well before Black Friday. You can shop right now Raycon products at up to 50% off because their early Black Friday sale is going on right now. You've heard us talk about Raycon before when it came to the earbuds. They got that comfortable in-ear fit. They got that 32-hour battery life, and you know you're getting a high-quality product at a fraction of the price of those other competitors. But now, this past year, Raycon has expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech. Oh, baby. Their 5-star reviewed Magic 180 cable allows you to charge iOS, micro USB, and Type-C devices 8 times faster with what I will now be referring to as the top defensive pairing in Luke and Dougie as the 100-watt power delivery system. And I'll say it cleaner the next time when they're on the ice. Their faucet filter also ultra filters water in your tap against chlorine and heavy metals. It's a must-have for ensuring the water that you use to wash your face and brush your teeth is, well, dang it, clean. Now, come on. Raycon is known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features at half the price of the premium tech brands. It's no wonder why their products have racked up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews to get everybody, I mean everybody, in on the holiday shopping spirit a bit early. Raycon is currently offering 20% on every single product on their site, with select products up to 50% off. So beat the crowds and save now. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on Raycon's early Black Friday sale. Hurry now to buyraycon.com/THPN to get 20%, maybe halfway here, buddy. Show a little enthusiasm. 20-50% off site wide. That's buyraycon.com/THPN. Oh, yeah, to score 50% up to 50% off on Raycon products. Buyraycon.com/THPN. Anybody notice, if you're watching over on YouTube, I slowly descended into madness here. Got a bit of a chair product. We're going to call it a malfunction.
Oh,
so
that's, I was like, what's going on? I was like, what's
what
happening?
it is, I get so excited when we're talking about the holidays and it's all happening that I get so overjoyed that I have to ground myself even further just to make sure that things are okay. Okay. Before we talk about your poll over on Twitter, which was a resounding support for one young Alexander Holtz, who do you think? Where do you think? Let's see. Where does Siegenthaler rank in giveaways right now on the Devils?
Giveaways? What,
Yeah.
defense or overall?
Overall.
He's probably, I'm going to say, he's middle of the pack.
He is third worst on the team with 8 giveaways overall, behind only Jack Hughes and Dawson Mercer. And guess what? All of his giveaways are in the defensive zone. Mwah! Chef's kiss. Right behind him, Dougie Hamilton, 8 total giveaways, 7 in the defensive zone. Right behind him, in 5th place, strong Luke Hughes, 7 giveaways, 5 in the defensive zone. We know that he's capable of giving up in the neutral zone, especially when it comes to some of those power play opportunities. And not too far behind in 7th is one Kevin Bahl, 6 giveaways, all in the defensive zone. I got to tell you, it's not even the giveaways. It's that they're all like, but you know where I'm going to give it up? Exclusively in the defensive zone. Like if you said you did it in the neutral zone, if you said you're in the offense, you're trying to finish, but that's some of what you're trying to clean up here is some sloppy play. And we've seen those moments, at least every game, you pick and choose which guy, but you go, the other day we saw, what was Dougie thinking there? Or boy, Siegs kind of got his pocket picked, right? I think he's been most suspect to trying to control that puck coming out from behind the net sometimes and getting snake bit by an odd man rush coming from behind the net. It's almost looks.
Yeah, I mean, the Jack Hughes giveaways, he has
those you expect. Yeah,
he has the puck all the time. So the amount of ice time he gets, the same with Mercer. He's had the puck a lot too, but it's something to watch moving forward.
Only 3 defensive giveaways for him, by the way, out of the 9.
Yeah. Our defense hasn't played well, so you're going to see the defensive guys out there. You don't see Brendan Smith in there because he hasn't had the ice time, obviously, that Siegenthaler, Hamilton, and Hughes have had. So you don't see, obviously, with the ice time being the differentiation there. But it's something to really watch, and I think that's exactly why the pairings needed to change. Like something needed to happen. And here's a question that I wanted to ask you too.
Yeah, pose me.
We didn't even talk about this beforehand, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Do you think Fitz had his voice heard to Lindy Ruff? Do you think Fitz went to Ruff and was like, "Listen, we need to change," or was this all Ruff that's making a decision?
No, no. I don't think I mean, listen, I could be wrong, but what is that? A
Yeah,
GM,
no,
a GM comes down, 10, 11 games into a season and dictates terms to the just
I
extended
agree.
among the highest winning coaches in the league. No, no, this is Lindy Ruff. Whether or not we think he can be stubborn at times or he can make moves at times, this is him. I think taking his time, getting to what he knows he needs to try here, some different looks, and hopefully, even beyond Jack and Nico being out, it's getting some guys going here for when they return as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw some polls that were actually asking that question, brought that question up. Do you think it's similar to baseball where the GM is going to come down and talk to your head
No,
coach?
no.
I don't think so at all. I think that Lindy Ruff, this is his team to do what he needs to do. And I think Fitz has all the trust in him in the world. The reason why he extended him, he was,
Yeah.
listen, he should have been coach of the year last year. Obviously, Boston winning the president's, trophy and, I think having 65 wins. Obviously, why Boston's coach won it. But you have to trust him, and I think Fitz does. And I think Fitz is in the position where he's like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to let Lindy figure it out. And when the time comes, if Fitz sees a trade that can happen, that's when he's going to go to Lindy and be like, all right, listen, what do we do? So, I'm with you on it. I don't think Fitz has really any, I don't want to say any say, but I don't think he has any say on the day to day when it comes to the lineup changes with
No,
Ruff.
I mean, the say that he has is the moves that you make and the players that you exit out and the players you bring in because you have a vision of, and this is how these players will get utilized. This is what their value is to the team, right? And obviously that happens in conjunction with Lindy Ruff. You have those discussions, and then, like you say, I mean, you want to get a month down the road here and things aren't going well, and you say, well, why aren't the players producing? I'm sure at some point, then it becomes, excuse me, Fitz, did you bring these players into XYZ or what was your expectation? And that's a nice little move by the media to try to drive a wedge between, head coach and GM here. I don't anticipate that being the case with the Devils as we move forward. Interestingly enough, before we talk about which is more concerning, the Nico or the Jack injury, I know you talked about that a little bit, and also Alexander Holtz. On those giveaway takeaway battles, just as a footnote here, Luke Hughes has the third most takeaways on this team right now, behind only Jack with 10 and Jesper Bratt with 9. So he actually is producing positively in that category. Nico Hischier, you miss him because he's 8 takeaways to just his 4 giveaways that he's had. Dawson Mercer is trending on the negative side, 6 to 9. And I want to make sure I found the one other one here when we talked about Dougie Hamilton. Where are you, Douglas? He only has this. This was the concerning one for me. Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton. 1 takeaway for Siegenthaler, 2 takeaways for Dougie Hamilton, right? So they've been giving up the defensive zone a little bit and just not causing some of that disruption there. So hopefully that's what these shakeups give you. What was the poll that you ran over on Twitter in regards to Alexander Holtz?
Oh, would you be okay with the Devils trading away Holtz? It was just a simple yes or no.
Yep.
I know where I stand on this. I'm not okay with it unless the return is incredible.
Dr.
Right?
Hedge. Yeah.
Like that's really but that's the only hedge you can do, right? Like, and to me, it's like getting Big Z from Calgary, right? Getting Zadorov from Calgary.
Yep.
I wouldn't want Holtz in the trade. I just wouldn't, and a lot of people, I was talking to a lot of friends about this too. I don't know how you feel about it. You can definitely chime in a second, but I wouldn't want that trade. What?
Can I chime in a second? Thank you.
But I wouldn't want that trade because I don't think we've seen enough of Holtz to make that decision that he is that tradable right now. I still think that he has an upside, and now that he is on the top 2 lines, especially, we gotta wait. We gotta wait and see. And not by any means does it mean we're gonna make a trade anytime soon. I don't think we're going to, but as of right now, I'm not okay with trading Holtz. I'm not.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I was the listen. I talked about him being an X factor coming into the season for a number of different reasons, and one of those was that even if he wasn't producing for the Devils, he's an X factor because he's the most tradable commodity maybe you have right now that could be the most attractive. Now, I think that he's going to produce. I think it's great that he's gotten himself onto one of these top lines through necessity, but hopefully he can produce. The one thing, if I want to play both sides of this here, if I want to give the Devil's advocate, it can be that Lindy Ruff is putting him up there because if Big Z is available and he's pushing for the trade, like that this is like supposed to be sooner than later, not okay, we'll see as we approach the deadline. No, he wants out now and his agent is pushing for that. So if that scenario is playing out, if you are the Devils, this can be a both and. Hey, Alexander Holtz, we think you can produce up at the top line. We're going to put you up there and see how you go. Also, we can be showcasing you if we think there's an opportunity to facilitate something like this. It would be hard for me right now, not having Jack, not having Nico, to then give up another young player that can produce. But we know the nature of it, man. And I think that's also why you see the shakeup defensively. Hey, if these defensive pairings aren't going to produce, I mean, all these guys collectively, right? It hasn't been good enough across the board. So at some point, you do have to acknowledge, is our defense going to be actually the bigger issue, as we discussed, than the goaltending? Right now, it is for me, right? The defense is the bigger problem. If that's going to continue, then you're going to have to make a move. And I think it would come down to saying, is Z maybe the best, one of the best options that you could go get? Maybe you'd want to do it at the deadline, not now, but
Right.
now is the time, right?
And remember, Tanev's going to be available too. So there's going to be other guys out there that.
And there's going to be 2 or 3 other names we don't know yet,
The
right?
the
Teams
thing
coming and going here.
the thing is that's interesting is that Mercer's a free agent after this year, right? So,
We talked about this a little bit too. Yeah.
you and we could sit here and say, I don't want Holtz to be traded. I think he's going to be traded. I don't want him to be traded, but I do think he will be traded because I think the Devils are going to be in the position that they're going to need a big piece to come back. So I do think he's going to be traded, and I don't think the Devils will trade Mercer because I think they're going to want to extend him. They're going to want to see how the season plays out. So that being said, I think they're going to want someone who is producing offensively, even in his limited ice time at the NHL level, because he has a big upside. And I think he's going to be utilized very differently on certain teams. So I do think he will be traded this season. I do not want him to be traded though. So, it's like a juggernaut to me because do you trade, like if you knew Holtz was like, say we're a dozen games in, right? And Holtz scores 8 goals. He's going to be way more attractive, to other teams, obviously, in a big trade market.
Sure.
So there's a lot of moving parts with this. I really like Holtz, and I'm excited for him to get this opportunity. I don't want him to be traded. If the return is great, though, it's almost like you're actually a little excited for Holtz because he's going to get an opportunity with a team that is going to look at him differently and maybe give him consistent top 2 lines or top 3 lines, whatever it might be. So, it's a tough one because he hasn't been utilized the correct way. You and I both agree on that. Now that he's coming up to one of the top 2 lines, it's great to see. But, I mean, the next, 4 or 5 weeks are going to be a really telltale sign for him as a player and his development. I think he's been extremely professional, but extremely frustrated at the same time, in his post games, and you can see it. And there's the mental, capacity to what's going on in his head too. He's probably pissed off, and I don't blame him that he's pissed off.
Yeah,
And
he's
maybe
a high
that's
first-round pick, and he feels like he's talented enough to
and maybe
produce and just hasn't been given maybe the latitude that other players have, right? I mean, listen, I love Luke Hughes. Nobody loves him more than me. And it's not apples to apples, but it's just, well, I see Luke struggling. I don't see him getting shuffled out. And by the way, I see him struggling a little bit. I see him getting elevated, right? And so
yeah.
so there is now happening in tandem here, 2 young players saying, okay, you're both getting pushed up into bigger spots. Let's see you go produce. Listen, the tease for me is I'm not going to put any conviction on what players might be a part of trades if the Devils decide they need to make a move. I agree. I really like Dawson Mercer. I want Dawson Mercer to be a part of this team going forward, but we know how this works.
Yeah.
Tyler Tofolli is a free agent after this year. Are you bringing him back because he's a veteran? We're learning that this team does need some more veteran leadership on it. So there are going to be some difficult choices that have to get made here. And I'm not going to tell you it's more than 0.001%, but it's more than a 0% chance that people will want to have discussions about Dawson Mercer as much as they will anybody else when it comes to, hey, you want this guy, right? You want to be in these talks? Guess what? We want some of your good players, right? So those are going to be really hard to have here. And obviously, hopefully, as the numbers tell us, 59% saying no, they do not want Alexander Holtz to be traded. So the ideal version of this is these lines and these combinations start to produce, the defense starts to tighten up a little bit, and the Devils don't have to worry about those decisions, at least in this moment. We will come back in. We got a couple things here for you. We're going to do a game day preview so you can catch us just highlighting where the line stands, a little DraftKings action. We'll think a couple plays we might like if you want to throw a couple shekels down. That'll be coming tomorrow afternoon. This afternoon, excuse me. It's game day. I know where we are. And then also over on Substack, you're going to start seeing Danny and I pumping out some articles. So we'll put some links up here in the coming days. It's going to be about trade targets, teams, and players to watch over the next few weeks to see where the Devils are and where they think they need to make a move. Because the one thing that's changed from last year, this team has expectations to go on a deep playoff run. So there is an impetus, there is an energy and a wheels in motion kind of vibe about not being able to rest on your laurels when it comes to lackadaisical play and areas of this team that need to improve. Until then, though, Dan. Until then, you get us over at Danny the Face and at Adam Armbrecht on X, also at NJ Devils PL on TikTok, on Snapchat, on Instagram, and on Facebook at
Devil's Puck Luck.
Also at Devil's Puck Luck over on YouTube. Danny, big hammer, get us out the door.
Holtz with a goal and an assist tonight. Let's make it happen. 2-point night.
That's not really catchy, but we'll see you next time. Yes.